Behold, the Bowtech Core SR that I just went down to Eugene, Oregon at the Bowtech Pro Shop and built with the team there. Absolutely amazing, gracing our presence right now. You too could own one of these Bowtech SRs and go to Oregon and actually put it together with me and the team. How do you do that, you may ask? Well, in celebration of the 100th episode of my podcast, we are doing just that giveaway. I'm going to bring one of you to Oregon to the Bowtech Pro Shop to put together this exact bow, but built for you. But I'm also going to give you a bunch of other gear. A Peaks Solace 15 sleeping bag, a Yeti 210 cooler, big enough to hold elk quarters. It's marvelous. Go Hunt Insider membership, a Mountain Tough membership, a Leupold spotting scope. So you may ask, how do I get involved in this, David? Well, all you got to do is two things. One, you got to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Altitude Show YouTube channel. Number two, you got to comment on this video tagged on top of the YouTube channel. You do both of those things, you're entered to win this $5,000 package, which includes a custom built Core SR and a trip to Oregon, plus Peaks, Yeti, Go Hunt, Mountain Tough, Leupold, all that amazing information you get from Go Hunt, the workouts you get from Mountain Tough, the gear you get from Leupold, Peaks, Yeti, Bowtech. Unbelievable. And I'm so stoked to do this because I'm stoked to do these podcasts. And this is my 100th episode. So that's what you got to do, folks. Don't miss out. Come to Oregon, hang out. Let's go shoot. For the 100th episode, I wanted to bring back on Will Primos. He was one of my first episodes I launched, and he's an amazing dude. I hunted with him years ago. He's been an idol of mine my entire life, and I've got to become friends with him, which is pretty awesome. Genuine, honest, smarter than a whip, and he's just, I don't know, I get a lot of wisdom out of him. So enjoy our conversation. We talked for like an hour and 45 minutes about all kinds of stuff from business to hunting to marriage. I hope you guys enjoy it.
So.
Yeah, and you might get feedback that's valuable, or you might get, insights on the product.
Or you get to know somebody you would have never had the chance to know, who's got an opportunity or who might encourage you, or whatever the case might be. That human connection is, I think, important to the growth of a business. So at some point, I think there needs to be that connection, that actual human to human connection.
Yeah. Well, folks, we just jumped on in the middle of a conversation, but we're talking about just how business has changed. Obviously, Will built a huge enterprise very successfully. And by the way, welcome, Will. You were, I thought you were my first show, but you're actually, I think, my second episode that I put out. But this is the 100th episode of this podcast. So I really, really, really wanted to get you back on because I love talking to you. You're so smart. You're one of my childhood heroes, man.
I'll take second any day.
Yeah, and you were second to Jack Carr, who is an amazing person as well. And so it was the first two episodes were bombers. And but I wanted to have you on for my 100th episode because you were one of my heroes, and I love talking to you. So for context, we were just talking about how business has changed. Will, like when I look at what you did, and last time you were on here, first of all, we talked a lot about your history and a lot of business things, and we can talk about whatever we want. This is a free-flowing show. But today I did want to dive a little bit more into some hunting things, not necessarily tactics or anything like that, but just I want to hear some stories. We're going to watch some videos, and I want to dive into some pretty deep subjects around conservation and, meat and stuff like that. Just kind of a little bit all over the place. I have thought through it though, Will. I have a list. And, but regardless, I would love to pick your brain more sometime on the evolution of business and how you, as someone who built a successful business, like if you were to do it again right now, like what would you think about differently in terms of how you set it up? Maybe that's how I'd like to kick this off. Just fundamentally, like, what are you seeing in the world where you go, if I did Primos again, maybe I would do it this way? Yeah.
Before we get started, David, every once in a while you go very fuzzy and even your words are slurred, and I can't. Really? I don't know if that's important, if that's going to come across that way when you have this thing set up, but now you just went blank.
Yeah. So what I just did is I turned it on a mode. So there'll be times. Let me make sure I'm on the right internet. I have iSpeed. Are you hearing me okay right now?
I'm hearing you good. Yep.
Yeah, so you may or may not be able to see me sometimes. It's just the way the internet ebbs and flows, but it's recording at a very high quality. It's
Yeah.
just what you're seeing is a low quality or nothing. But
Okay.
the audio should not come in and out. Will
Okay.
is it has it done that since we?
Since you did that, the audio has not gone in and out. It has stayed
Okay,
in.
perfect. All right. So
Yeah.
it's annoying, but just act like you can see me for now. It is recording 4K. It's just it has to do it this way. That it's called low
It's
data mode.
it's easier to talk and not look at you.
Perfect.
I thought you'd find that funny.
my
Okay.
wife my wife agrees.
Oh no, she does not.
Oh man. So what would you do different if you built Primos fundamental? Like how would you set it up differently? Have you ever thought about that?
How did what differently?
I said, how would you if you had to start Primos again today
Yep.
in the modern day, have you ever thought about, man, what would I do different?
Yeah, I've had people come to me, and the question is, how did you do what you did? I want to build a company. What are some things I should do or not do? And I can't emphatically answer that because the times have changed. The distribution system is different. The internet has taken over in a with a rage, and so much is sold online. Um, I had an experience recently. Got a place in Bozeman. I was in Bozeman, and I wanted some nice V-neck T-shirts. And so I did a little bit of got on my iPad and did a little bit of looking. I found Mac Weldon, and I ordered the T-shirts. You're looking at them. You can't hold them up and see how they fit up, how they might fit, because some people a large will fit me, and some people it has to be a medium. And so I ordered, but after looking at the size, ordered a medium, and they were too small. And this company had their act together so good. I made a phone call, and I actually talked to somebody, and they told me, go online, do this, do this. And I wasn't on the phone with them 30 seconds. I did it. I returned the T-shirts, no charge, everything paid for, to a Staples store. They were set up to handle that. Walked in, they knew exactly what I was doing. They returned it. And in 2 days, I had the larges. So they've worked out this online business because they realize they're going to have some sizing issues or some I don't like it issues or whatever. But it made me want to do business with this company because they were so easy to do business with. So I go back to the foundation of Primos. One of the foundations of Primos was we're easy to do business with. And every policy, every procedure we set up, we tried to put ourselves in the place of the dealer or the consumer, and we tried to make it easy to do business with. So no matter what business you're doing or how you're doing it, you ask yourself those questions and solve those issues, because you find that people are only going to give you so much of their time and so much effort. And if you're a hassle, and then you really hassle them once they go through the process and they feel like they didn't get a good deal and they didn't get what they wanted, they're not, that's not good. And they might tell quite a few others, don't use them. So asking yourselves the right questions, the answer might be different than it was 40, 50 years ago, different today, but there's a solution for that. But asking yourselves the right questions is what is so important. And it was interesting that I could get somebody on the phone at Mac Weldon and quickly answered my questions and sent me in the right direction.
Yeah, so Will, like when you guys were making those types of decisions on keeping customers happy, did you have the mindset that the customer's always right, or were there times where you're like, you know what, you're wrong. We're probably going to piss you off, but we're holding our ground.
Yes, there was. I remember. I don't. I remember one of the instances, but I remember that specifically there were two times, and I remember one of them, but there were two times when the customer was wrong. And there was no way to make the customer happy. And so
Altitude Show is brought to you by Mountain Tough Fitness. I just turned 43 last month, getting a little bit old, but I am in the best shape of my life. And a lot of that can be attributed to the Mountain Tough app because they have programs for beginners, they have programs for the elite athlete, and everything in between. A functional fitness program for the hunter. And it's amazing. I love it. I know personally Dustin, one of the founders of this company. I've known them since they started the company. I truly trust them and what they tell me about my health. They're constantly testing different things in the lab in Bozeman, Montana to optimize their app and make it better for you, the consumer. So you need to go out to the app store. You need to get the Mountain Tough app, use my code altitude and or use code Dave20 and it gives you a huge discount on the app. Dave20 gives you 20% off. So you need to go do that and you need to start doing this a few times a week at least. And you will never feel better. Like I have never felt better in my life. So go out and get the Mountain Tough app. Use my code Dave20 for 20% off. You will not regret it.
When this came up, the customer service knew they could come get me at any time. And I happened to be there and they came and got me. And I went to the phone and I said, "Sir, this is Will Primos. I founded this company and I know that Suzanne here has tried to take care of your issue and make you happy. But I've determined from listening to y'all and listening to her, there's no way we're going to be able to make you happy. So we're going to refund your money and you go on and have a great day." And he was cussing and ranting and raving, and even that wasn't enough. But that's just what you got. You got to stay calm. There's no sense in you getting in the gutter with them. But here's an instance. So some of the products that we sold were very high. Well, everything we sold, we set a demand on everything that we did that we had to have 65% gross margin at our lowest published selling price. And if the product, if we couldn't price it and it be accepted by the public with those margins, then we did not allow the product to enter unless it was what we called a loss leader and it was necessary. Actually, the turkey box call fit that criteria. They were expensive to make because we weren't going to make them one way. And we made 58 points on the box call. But we went ahead and put it in the line because turkey hunters expect you to have a box call, but they're going to buy the other higher end margin stuff when they're making their purchase. But when the dealer would call us, and he would call us and he'd say, "Look, I got a guy here, and here's a perfect magical thing for the time we were in business." The dealer would call us and say, "I got a crow call here. Customer says it doesn't work. What you want me to do?" All right. Well, I can make it hard on that dealer. I can say, "Mail it to me. We'll get it, inspect it, send it back, or send you another one." I said, "Sir, we'll credit your account." He said, "I don't have an account with you." So that was one thing that could happen. We said, "Well, sir, we are going to set you up an account right now. We're going to set that account up, and we're going to give you a credit on that account for the wholesale cost of a crow call. So whenever you get ready to buy something, you can call here and you've got a credit." So he wasn't a dealer, but he became a dealer. Well, we sold dealers at higher margin than distributors. And so we now had that dealer account. And then he said, "Oh, so I can buy direct from y'all?" "Sure you can." And then the customer service lady would give him to one of the sales guys that was in the office. And we would go and send him a real nice spring and then send him a dating fall order. What's a dating fall order? Well, you got him on the phone. He's buying spring turkey. But if he'll go ahead and give you a fall dating order for different items, clothing, different things, deer calls, elk calls, whatever it might be for later in the fall, we could say, "We'll ship you July 1 and you don't have to pay for it until November 1. So we got their order. So it opened up an opportunity for us to fill the peg. If you get the peg filled and you get that placement in the store, when the competition comes along, it's much harder for them to make a sale because they've already got those items. Because we had a lot of competition that had very similar items to what we did. Some of our stuff was better than theirs. Some of it was equal. And so you can make fishing lures, you can make worms, and two different companies making the same things. So you've got to have policies and procedures in place that make it easy for you to do business with. So that opportunity for that guy to call us about a bum crow call, so to speak, opened the door for us to set up an account and then begin to service that account directly. And then set up and get an order for the fall. And that just really, really grew the business. All that's changed. A lot of things have grown direct, but it's amazing how impulsive we are as consumers. People are going elk hunting. They're traveling. They used to drive out and go to Sydney, Nebraska and go to Cabela's, and they'd call and say, "Hey, I came here to get a hyperlip. I want a hyperlip elk call." And Cabela's is out. I said, "Well, do you want us to ship it to you? Do you have the address of where you're going to be?" "Yes, I do." "Can you ship it next day air?" So they would pay next day air shipping for a $15.99 call that cost them that much to get it next day air ship, if not more. But that's what they want. And if we would accommodate them, he'd say, "Well, look, I'm only going to be at that address tomorrow for 2 days." I said, "We'll walk this back to shipping and get it out today." Those are the kind of things that build loyalty and build a reputation over time, and it'll serve you. It served us. Today, there are other opportunities with the distribution system that's available to us through the internet and through direct online business. I don't know what they all are because I'm not in that world on a day-to-day basis, but they're there, and you can capitalize on it. Like I told you the story about Mack Weldon. I couldn't believe how efficient and easy that was to do. Obviously, the 3-step or 2-step distribution system is so expensive. If I make a T-shirt and I sell it to Cabela's, they're going to want to pay, if they pay $10 for it, then they're going to want to sell it for $20 or $25. Well, if I put it on $25 on the internet and I'm selling it direct and you're paying shipping, the margins are there for me to give you better customer service and to be able to work out a system like what Mack Weldon worked out.
Yeah, the margin thing as a consumer is hard to understand because you're like, well, wait a minute, you're marking it up 65% or whatever. Why don't you just sell it to me cheaper? And the answer to that, wouldn't you agree? Obviously, is you have to pay employees to do customer service, product development, hard costs, and you have to run the business to provide the level of service that you want to give that customer. So yeah, and you have to make money because we're not in business as a charity. For-profit businesses are for profit. Sometimes it's hard for people to understand that.
It is, but more so than for profit, it's expensive to have a business and to pay all the things that come up in running a business. But bottom line, you've got to be able to have good employees and reward them and pay them well and pay them bonuses, or they're going to work for you for 6 months or a year or 2 years and be gone. And you've got to balance all that so that employee is there to support your customer base and build on your customer base.
Yeah, you guys did an extraordinary job with loyalty. I don't know many of your employees. I know a couple of them, but I do know that your team, like your film team specifically.
Oh yeah.
From looking in, like it just seemed like you guys had the same guys for a lot of years. And I know this industry is tumultuous. There's a lot of turnover in this industry. So that was impressive to me and told me also that the value of your character specifically before I met you, that people wanted to stay that loyal to you.
Well, it takes a lot of work to do that, but you've got to put your employees first. And if you'll do that, it should pay you dividends. I'm looking here on my computer. there was I told you about the mission statement when we did our first podcast together. I'm going to email you that. Can you get that while we're talking?
Yeah. Send it to me.
It's very interesting to see the mission statement and to read it. Let me see if I can share it with you. What's interesting is when we wrote, I should say, I had a lot to do with it, but when we wrote it, and we got the mission statement where it really meant something, I felt like it needed more than that. It needed something to support it. That's a Word document coming your way.
Okay.
And I needed every employee in the company to understand the mission, but more than that, to understand how to support the mission, and then not just support the mission, but to understand how to behave or react every day to whatever went on in the business to support the mission. And so I came up with what is the mission, and then what defines that mission. And it's three things that make us successful, and that's three interconnecting circles.
Hey, Will, can I show this to the listening audience?
Of course you can.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. All right. We got it.
Yeah. And so those three interconnecting circles are something I learned from reading the book Good to Great by Collins. And you have to define what drives your economic engine. And so the interconnecting, that black center, that little triangle in the center, those three things come together to drive the economic engine of a company. And so every company has different things that drive it. So the Good to Great book is a wonderful business lesson for people. At any rate, and then once you define that, and I think it's worth saying what they are, the success of our customers at selling Primos products, that's one of them. And then easy to do business with. So that's one of the circles. And then profit per product. Well, it could have been profit per sale, per invoice. It could have been many, many other things. For instance, in the book Good to Great, Walgreens could have defined their what drives their economic engine as profit per store, profit per product, profit per state, because they got so many. How do they drive it? And so they made a choice that it was profit per product, if I remember correctly. You could go to some cities, some high density cities, and they'd have a Walgreens on all four corners of a block. So it's not profit per store. So they built an incredible economic engine. After you define that, what are the goals? And you ask the question. So I wanted to say to the employees, what are our goals at Primos that allow us to accomplish our mission, referring back up to that first sentence, which is to make each and every customer successful at selling Primos products. If I can get my product in your store and you sell out of it, you're going to buy more of it. So if I'm making you successful, you're going to help make me successful.
And in this context, Will, you're talking about dealers as customers, correct?
Yes, I'm talking about dealers. About dealers. You can apply that to consumers too, because their success could be the success using the products. I mean, how many times have you and I, especially in the early days, when we didn't have any money, we couldn't afford anything, and we buy a backpack and the zipper breaks when we're at 10,000 feet, and it becomes a real hassle. And it becomes difficult. So you've got to, fulfill your mission to the consumer as well.
Absolutely.
But we design and build, package, and inventory solid hunting products that are shipped on time. These products are then backed by intensive marketing that brands not only the mind, but the heart. the final goal in our mission is to provide support and service to all our customers. Then, okay, I said something about the goals. What about the company principles that keep us on autopilot every day? And then I listed those. And then I wanted to define the priorities that tell us what our culture is. What makes Primos so different and fun to work at and so forth. So I have a commitment to all of those things down at the bottom. And we debated these things, mainly the 7 department heads who ran different departments in the company. But, here it is. Somebody says, you think you're going to make a living selling game calls? Well, I'm going to get started making a living selling game calls, and then I hope to grow into other things and open other doors, which we did. But bottom line, you got to have a direction. You got to know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you're lost.
What year do you think this document was written?
Probably 1990, mid-90s. It developed now. It morphed a little bit. It didn't. Yep. It hadn't changed in years now. And look, read that last thing that's on that mission statement.
So the mission statement says, Primos' mission and goal is to make each and every customer successful at selling Primos products.
All right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Read the very last printed words at the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay. It's not about Primos. It's about the customer.
There you go. And so if everybody that gets hired everybody gets hired at Primos reads this, and then in every performance review, they got another copy of it. Every 3 months, they had a performance review. And then you got reminded, of what are we about? And it also empowered every employee, because when the employees saw some of these things that were not being adhered to, or were not working out the way the mission statement was, they would speak up. In other words, they would fight for the culture. So, having.
Do you think this is like the most important document or like fundamental thing a startup company should do? Is this something a startup company can do, should do before they even start?
It is much, much harder for a startup company to do it. But if you could start with something, it's like having a handbook, a manual. Mm-hmm. It's very, very hard for a startup company to think, hey, a manual. Yeah, explain what the vacation days are, what the sick days are, what the deal is. How do I handle if I have an employee that starts dating a fellow employee, and they work together. Now they're mad at each other. Now they can't work. You got to have policy that helps you guide that process so everybody knows what it is. So sitting down and writing a manual that works, that's human resources, it's important, even though it's a small startup company. I can't say it's the most important thing. The most important thing for a startup company is to start. I mean, so many people. I've started one major company in the last few years, and working on another one that I can't talk about yet. But the main, as I told the guy that mainly there's 6 of us that started, but the main guy, and I said, the main thing, this idea is too good. We've got to start it. He says, well, what do we do about so-and-so and so-and-so? I said, I don't even know that we need to go there yet. So we can't anticipate the whole world. We can't sit here and tell you everything that's going to happen and every opportunity we're going to have or not have going forward. So we just get started. And when we get started, we will build steam, and we will realize that the water flowing through that pipe ain't big enough. We got to put in a bigger pipe. And you make those changes as you go forward. But getting started is the main thing. And then trying to have a mission statement, trying to have something that defines what drives your economic engine. If you have those guidelines, you begin to implement them on day one. It helps form your culture. It gives people direction. It gives people confidence, and people want to be a part of a winning team. And that really helps. But a handbook gives you guidance. That helps. Main thing for a startup company is to get started.
I love that. So true.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Just taking it from an idea and actually starting to build something seems like that's what a lot of people struggle with because it's scary.
How many people have you heard say, I had that idea? Yeah, but you didn't start it. You didn't do anything with it.
Yeah. It's scary. It's scary for most people, and not all personalities can handle that fear.
No.
Or maybe
some people are averse to risk. Yeah.
But
Jason Hairston, who was one of the partners in Sitka, where you used to work, he sold to Sitka along with his other buddy was named Jason too, wasn't it?
Jonathan Hart.
Yeah, Jonathan Hart. So they started Sitka, if I have the story correct, and then Jason Hairston wanted he wanted to work out his non-compete and start a new company, but he had an idea from starting Sitka, and he formed KUIU, KUIU. And the first thing you see, the very, very first thing you see is the name KUIU. And you go, what the heck? Why did you name your company KUIU? What a brilliant decision. In today's world, I was with somebody and I said, so what are you calling this new product? He said, Trophy binoculars. I said, do what? I said, type in Trophy and see what you get. He typed in Trophy and he got like 1,000 hits for something called Trophy. And I looked at him and I said, type in KUIU. He said, what? KUIU. Type in KUIU. He got one hit. It was KUIU. And so that one decision helped put KUIU in a unique spot that they could own a place in the mind of the consumer.
You know the other ironic thing about that, Will?
What?
It's not ironic. He planned this. KUIU Island is the island directly across from Sitka Island.
Yeah. And that's awesome, Yeah. But a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
Sitka was a good name too. But, then he set about in the world that he lived in, and how long ago was that? 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that KUIU was in what I call the beginning heyday.
It was probably 2012, if I had to guess.
Yeah. He had an incredible customer service deal. The people got on the phone. They knew what hunt I'd been on. They knew where I was going. They had what new product I might need. It's going to be really raining a lot there to make sure. So they could help advise what products, and their customer service was incredible. And you got to talk to somebody who would help teach you. And then you looked at Jason when he would do videos and show you how he would go about on some of these high mountain, strenuous, burning lots of calories a day. And I'll never forget him talking. He got those Fritos, and because they're full of oil and whatever, and great calorie builder. And he would crush those Fritos, crush them up and put them in a bag. And that's how he kept his calorie intake up on some of the trips. It was pretty interesting point, but you learn from these people, and then you begin to look up to them and realize he's been there, thought it up, had the problem, wanted better pants, better raincoat, better tent, better sleeping bag, better backpack, whatever it is. And I want to go on this trip and I want to focus on the hunt. I don't want to be worrying about everything falling apart and being miserable. So anyway,
Jason was, he was who hired me at Sitka, and one of the things that immediately, or we had this connection, was I admired how fearless he was. Like, I used to ride to work with him every morning when we were in Napa, California, and we'd stop at Starbucks, get our coffees, and we were in terrible, awful traffic that I never want to see again. 6 lanes from Fairfield, California from Dixon, California to Napa. and it would take
Yeah.
about an hour.
Yeah.
And we would talk business the whole time because I was fresh out of college and I didn't know jack about business. But he had hired me as their basically I was the fourth employee. And he was like, he's like, here, you should do this. You should do this. You should do this. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do that. But he's like, you can do it. He's like, hell, you could run the company someday. You can do whatever you want. He's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build equipment. We're going to be this technical gear company, like so much vision. And I would soak all this up every morning, and every airplane ride I could sit by him. But he was always so fearless. And I don't know if that came from his NFL days or whatever. Now, sometimes it verged on arrogance, and some people it really turned off. And I understand that too. But if he wanted to do something, he did it. He didn't ask permission from anybody. He just did it. So I think he learned how to, like, the manufacturing process from Sitka, how to make kind of what his vision was in his head. And then when he left and he decided not to come with Gore, and he also had a chip on his shoulder because he felt like he was wronged. He took that chip on his shoulder, but also all that knowledge, and just turned the industry on its head in a very short period of time. Now, this is coming from someone that I had to compete with him for, I don't know, like 10 years, 7 or 8, 9 years. Cause I was still at Sitka running our big game division. So I was competing with him, and it was not fun because he was a really hell of a competitor. We won some, they won some, back and forth. And I'm so glad I'm out of that war now. But
I will tell you, that every good entrepreneur needs one heck of a competitor. A competitor, a strong competitor, only makes you better. If you don't have that, you're lazy. You can get very lazy very quickly. And speaking back to Jason's possible arrogance, I never saw it as arrogance. I saw it as confidence. I saw it as the willingness to take a risk, the willingness to go do something rather than just have the idea and sit on it. So, be careful in the people in your audience. And I can say this to, when you're sizing somebody up, first off, give them the benefit of the doubt. Second, trust them, and you can find out if you can trust them. But don't be very careful not to misinterpret arrogance for confidence. It's important because you want to be around people like that. They're movers and shakers.
Yeah, you got to have them on your team. Otherwise, you're going to lose because the other teams the other team's going to have them. That's why I loved working. I loved working with Jason because I felt like no matter what we did, we were going to do it. We were going to do it fearlessly. And I agree with you. It does seem like the other successful companies that I work with and or worked with have this level, in the leadership level especially, have to have a level of almost bravery. Like one thing that always comes up: should we build this product? And somebody in the room will say, well, I don't know, that product, there's other people that build similar products. Do you really want to go up against them? And the person that I'm talking about goes, yeah, I want to go up against them. I'm not scared of them. I can build it better. And they just do it anyway. It's like that. It's like, it's not arrogance. It's like, it could be classified as a form of ignorance, but like a healthy ignorance, like they think they can be better than this next. Yeah. But it's like if you're going to build a company, you almost have to have that level of, I don't know if it's a type of ignorance or just confidence. Maybe it's a mixture of the two, but like it's almost like blinders on. I'm just doing it. I'm not asking for permission. And you're going to take some big bumps and bruises, and Jason did, and so did we. But that's how you have to get it done. It's almost like I don't know if you watch a lot of sports, Will, but I watch a lot of sports, and specifically heavy contact sports, football, UFC. And if you meet a UFC fighter, or like even a Division I wrestler, for example, which I think are some of the best competitors in the world, they have this level of like they're just kind of asses sometimes. And like when I first started meeting them, I'm like, dude, I can't hang out with these guys. But then I kind of learned to understand them. And to survive in that world, you have to have this like level of confidence that comes off as arrogance. Otherwise, you're going to get destroyed because psychological warfare is brutal, and they will smell that in the air and they will destroy you. So I've learned to, like, even though I'm not personally like that, I tend to be a little bit more mild mannered and kind of I don't know how you describe it, but like I have learned from that how to be around those types of people and learn how to use that to my advantage in the business world or whatever it might be.
Yes, I mean, you said it real well. I mean, they've got, if they don't believe in themselves, if they don't believe in their own self image, if they think they're less than, there will be less than.
The Altitude Show is brought to you by GoHunt.com. GoHunt.com is the place for all things hunting. And the coolest thing is that their app now incorporates not just maps, but also some of the key features from the website, including draw odds, harvest success, public land percentage in an area, trophy potential, weapon season type, season dates, all incorporated into the app. They know that most of you, like me, are using your smartphone most of the time. You're not on your desktop. So they brought all these features over into the Go Hunt app to make the experience for you as a hunter just a little bit more convenient. So go check it out. If you're not a member of Go Hunt, you should be. It's an incredible service. Go become an insider. Use my code Altitude. You will get a discount, and you will also become a better hunter. So go become a Go Hunt member, and you'll be able to use the same features that you use on their website right there on your app, and along with your maps. So use code Altitude. Helps the show.
Yeah, it's their self image. I mean, these guys that are at that level, if they think this other guy can beat them, he's going to beat them. You know, they've got to enter that ring. They got to enter that competition that they can't be beat. Um, and of course, they've taken knowledge of how to wrestle, how to fight, how to play baseball, how to play football, and they've practiced. They've practiced batting for baseball. They've practiced certain moves in wrestling. They practiced catching the ball in football. And they've taken this knowledge and turned it into a skill. Their brain doesn't have to think about it anymore. They don't have to tell their feet to move. And I was reading something about Jerry Rice one time. He was talking. He was supposedly one of the greatest receivers ever. And the story on him, he grew up. His daddy was a brick mason, and he would throw the bricks to Jerry on the roof. Sometimes two at a time, one at a time, and some in rapid succession. And so you had to turn that knowledge that brick's coming, how to catch it, and then be ready for the next one immediately. And you're using your hand-to-eye coordination, catching those bricks and laying them down, getting ready to brick something on the side of a house or whatever. And so they were interviewing him one time, and they were telling him, saying, when you're looking at that ball coming, what are you seeing? And he said, well, I don't see the football. I don't see the stitching. I don't see the football spinning. I see the commissioner's signature as it goes round and round on the ball. But he had learned to use his eyes that well. And when those guys miss a ball, typically they, at the last second, checked what they were fixing to run into, looked at who was fixing to hit them, who was fixing to knock them as soon as they caught that ball. The guys that are totally focused on that ball, and that's all they see, they're the ones that are going to catch it. And the same thing for baseball. You know, those guys are seeing the stitching when that ball's coming to them. They're looking at that ball. They ain't looking at that bat. They're looking at that ball. So, you know, those guys have a self-image of themselves and their ability, the ones that play at a high level. In my opinion, they do. And if they don't think well of themselves, then they ain't going to play well.
Yeah, they're going to get beat. Have you ever met a really successful entrepreneur in your days as a businessman that was like a total pushover?
No. Not that was a pushover.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard being like, people don't realize how lonely of a place it is to be a founder like you.
Yeah, I
Because
appreciate it. It can be fun though, because there's so much incredible opportunities. Um, an example for a leader and an entrepreneur. One time, this guy, he wanted to come work in the hunting business. He was an agricultural, chemical, and seed salesman, and he loved to hunt and fish, and he wanted to come to work at Primos. So he came and interviewed with me, and I turned him down. He called me, wanted to come back for an interview, wrote me a letter. Said, I really want this job. I really want this opportunity. So I let some other executives interview him, and they kind of maybe so, maybe not. He sure seems to have the passion. So I let my guard down, and I hired the guy. Within 3 months, he was an absolute wreck and failure. He couldn't stand being in the office. He'd been in the field his whole life. He was around hunting and fishing, but he wasn't doing the hunting and fishing. Uh, a job's a job. And so, he was one day sitting at his desk, his head was just hanging down. I says, come on in and talk to me a minute. He came in and talked to me. I said, look, I know you're struggling. I know you're not happy. I can only imagine what it's like at home. You left a job you were good at that you liked. And he looked at me, tears started rolling down his eyes. And he said, I got 2 little girls, and I don't know how to quit this job because I ain't got another one. And it ain't working out for me. And my wife's about to kill me. And I said, look, you don't worry about a thing. You leave, you work your day out today, you clean your desk up. You've got 1 month of pay. And if you don't find a job in 1 month, you get another month. I'll go up to 3 months, and then we can have a serious conversation, but I'll pay you for up to 3 months. But you are to diligently look for a job. He had a job within 3 weeks, but being able to be in a position to do that, because I made the mistake. I can't just, as an entrepreneur and a leader, you've got to be able to make good decisions for the welfare of your employees, be it now, later. And another policy, when somebody came to me and said, I'm turning them a notice, I'm turning them a 2-week notice. Sometimes it was longer notice depending on their position. And I said, well, you can tell me if you want to, you don't have to, where you're going, but obviously congratulations, because you wouldn't be leaving if you didn't have more opportunity. And they said, I do have a great opportunity. I said, tell me how I can help you make this transition successful for you and your family. That has got to be the attitude of successful entrepreneurs and successful leaders of businesses. So when you take on that attitude, it comes back, and you help that person in their journey in life, because if you're an entrepreneur and you started a business and you've asked these people to come to work for you, I mean, this is their lives, and you've got to take that attitude, or your business is not going to be as successful as it could by any means.
Yeah. It provides a lot of opportunities you wouldn't have as if you were on the other side of the stick. It comes with, my wife and I talk about this all the time, because I run my businesses from my home office, so I'm often alone. Whereas when I worked at Sitka for 11 years, I was around a big team, or at least small team at first. Then we built it into a big company. So there was a ton of camaraderie and all those things. Now I spend a lot of my days alone. Now I virtually connect with my teams. One of them's in Bozeman and one of them's in Oregon, but I don't have nearly as much face to face as I used to. And the challenge that comes along with that is the potential loneliness. And because you're bearing the responsibility of a couple businesses, but you're also alone. So you have to, it takes a lot of, it takes a lot of mental strength to deal with that. And I've had to learn how to do it through exercise and getting outside and knowing when to take a break and stay healthy and all those things. But I would say it's not for everybody. That's for sure.
No doubt,
But
no
I
doubt.
enjoy it. I wouldn't want, I don't want to say it with as much confidence as maybe some of my friends do, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to work for anybody ever again. in terms of I'll work for my customers and consumers or whatever, but I want to be my boss. I want the responsibility. I trust myself to succeed or to accept failure. I'm just not wired to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's the true entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. Will, I wanted to, last time we talked a lot about entrepreneurship and stuff, and I could talk to you for hours about that, but I wanted to talk more today about some hunting things, not tactics or anything like that, but just there's some really, really profound. I grew up watching you, and I think you, in so many little boys' minds, were this. You're a legend, and all of these movies and stuff you guys put out have so many incredible moments. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to pull up some things. And the thing I wanted to start with, which is one of the highlights of my career, truly, was when we produced The Linguists at Sitka Gear, the movie about elk calling, with Corey Jacobson and you and Larry D. Jones and Wayne
Great
Carlton.
guys. Oh man, Corey. Yeah. Oh, great guys.
Yeah. And I wanted to play this part in this movie, and I wanted to expand. I want you to expand on a little bit once I can do it here.
Okay.
So for those of you watching, this is a movie that me and my team produced at Sitka Gear, 2017, and it's on YouTube. It's called The Linguists, and I think it's one of the better hunting films that's ever been done. Not just because I was involved with it, because I truly believe that it's just a really cool story. But there's this part in the movie where Will starts talking about what you're about ready to hear, and I think it's really powerful. And then we'll talk about it.
Support that way of life.
Public land is important. Private land is important. Through hunting and through elk hunting, especially, the passion for being there, seeing God's creation, seeing the sunrises and sunsets that can only happen in the West. Sure, they're beautiful here, but when you got mountains and snow and golden aspens, and some of the aspens even turn red depending on how they turn during that year, and those leaves are falling and they're catching into the spruce trees, and just see these things, and you got to realize how much you had to be thankful for.
A lot more than just shooting an elk every season.
It is a whole lot more than just shooting an elk. And then learning about the habitat and seeing the invasive things that happen that we've allowed, and being able to stop that so the elk can have food and have cover to raise their young and to go through the winter and to have corridors to travel. And we need to share it with as many people as we can. You teach somebody to love something, they'll want to protect it.
That's my favorite quote from the movie, Will.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. Ben Potter called me last week.
Ben Potter being the producer of that film. He filmed the whole thing. He helped score it. Amazing dude.
They're going to produce a linguist film documentary on turkey calling.
Turkey. Wow.
Yeah. So nice. He called me, and I told him I'd be glad to help him. And I said, man, there's so many more people you need to talk to besides me that so I gave him a list of some names. He was writing down as fast as he could go. But he's got 2 children now. He's doing great. His little boy sent me a picture of his little boy with 2 cinnamon teal, 7 years old. The little kid was born when y'all did that video, that film.
That's so crazy. It's been that long.
But anyway, that was a lot of fun. And Corey Jacobs has stayed in touch. Hadn't heard from him in a few months, but he's stayed in touch, and I hope Larry's doing well. And
I just saw Larry the other day. I just went out. Yeah, him and I went out and scouted blacktails together here just the other day. It was awesome.
Great. Great people that made a huge contribution to what a lot of people love about the West. Hunting elk, that's great.
What in your view is, so when you listen to that clip, and you were talking about, because the whole film's about elk and elk calling, but you got deeper there, which was like, to me, it was like separating. Yes, we all want to go out and harvest, and yes, we want to get the biggest thing, and all these things, these kind of more shallow reasons for hunting. But to me, that part of the film talked more about the bigger reason for being part of this thing we call hunting. Well, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, that's what gets you there. I mean, from the anticipation to the effort, to the physical and mental effort, and sometimes it can get really mental, of putting it all together in elk country, and to see the sights that you see, and then to realize that we can make good or bad decisions that can benefit or harm the environment with invasive species of grasses, so to speak, that have gotten into a lot of the West, and understanding what conservation really is. It's really sad that so much of the ballot box is controlled by the large urban cities in the United States, Denver for one, and Colorado, because they don't live. When they go see the mountains, they go skiing. Okay, that's one thing. But when you are hiking, climbing, and you're in that world and beginning to understand the environment that these wild creatures call home, and what an influence you can have for its benefit or its harm, it can be life-changing. And bottom line, once you learn to love something, you'll want to protect it. And that can go for your pet, your dog, your child, your wife, the environment, a certain spot. I read, a life member of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and love the magazine. And when I read about those conservation efforts and those conservation easements that they're able to put in place, that they're able to take something that's landlocked and give access to the public so that they can enjoy it, those are fantastic things, that make a difference for the future. Bottom line, you learn to love it, you want to protect it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's so sad. You mentioned the ballots being controlled by the large urban areas. Obviously we see that a lot out west. I live in Oregon, and it's super prominent here. It just happened in Colorado, with the reintroduction of wolves. It happens all the time, and it seems like we're constantly seeing these battles to strip away more and more from the hunters, which arguably are the most connected with nature. And it's like death by 1,000 cuts, right? And
Yes.
it's very frustrating. And you win some, you lose one, you win one, you lose one, but it's never ending. I mean, every day I get fed in my Instagram with these new laws that are being proposed. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous, like the one in Oregon. I can't remember the measure, but where they want to make it illegal to kill any animal for any reason, and that includes mice, that includes everything, which would basically kill the economy and people would starve and stuff. But it's there. Like, if they get enough signatures in the Portland area, they can put it on the ballot. And it makes you worry, because if they're really good at marketing, they could probably turn people's emotions to vote for it.
Yep. That's very true. But and that's another whole world of subject matter right there. But I hate it. I wish that everyone could learn to could learn to love it, and to appreciate it, and to realize that every one of us, I don't care if you're a vegetarian, I don't care what role you play in life, every one of us are consumers. We're consumers of the world that we live in, and we've just got to do it wisely. One time I was on an airplane, got in conversation with somebody sitting next to me, and turned out, let them know I was a hunter, and they're anti-hunter and vegetarian and whatever. And so I asked them, I said, so where do you live? I live in an apartment. And I lived in a big city. Okay, well, where that apartment is, at one point it was probably trees or something was growing there naturally, and it was cleared, and the homes were taken away from the critters that lived there, so that you could bring in gas and electricity and have warmth and hot water and have a nice apartment to retire to after a day of work or whatever the case may be. And so my point in saying that to you is we're all consumers. We've just got to be wise consumers. We've got to understand that when we change the water flow or how fast the water gets to where it wants to go out, that you can cause more flash flooding, whatever the case may be. We've got to make good decisions because we are capable as humans at changing the shape of the terrain or the levees or the rivers and changing stuff. And we've got to make good decisions. We're all consumers, and we all don't care how little you think you have an impact. We all have an impact on the environment, and we've got to make good decisions.
What do you think? What have been your favorite organizations to work with that you think do the best? Obviously, you just mentioned Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, that you're a life member. What other organizations would you recommend to people to get involved with that you trust?
Well, as a hunter, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, it's all about wetlands and the work that they're doing in the Prairie Pryho region and the boreal forest. All those areas are just incredible, the far-reaching impacts they have over a long period of time if they're done right. Trying to restore the Louisiana marshes, and there's so much going on and so much needs to be understood how it got to where it is when it's not right, and influence the migration of waterfowl. But bottom line, wetlands are so important to waterfowl, but they're so important to human life as well. But there's a lot of there's so many nonprofits out there. I love the Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever organization. You've got the Rough Grouse Society. All these are the basic things of hunting and of environment that if they're not there, it changes what can happen with the reproduction rate of wildlife, songbirds, everything included. So there's just a lot of them, David. I don't want to just say there's only one. But that I love the conservation aspects that each one of them do, and they are our voice. They help represent us to Congress and trying to get the right laws and the right things passed and the right things repassed or set it back up again so that we can enjoy what God gave us to enjoy. I mean, that's what it's all about, is getting outside and enjoying it.
What do you think it seems like a lot has changed even the last 5 years in terms of hunting. Like, for example, out west, it's just getting a tag in multiple states is getting very difficult, even for the most savvy hunter. What do you think the future of hunting is 10, 20, 30 years from now, Will? Like, where's this going, and what should we do to protect it other than the basic, support your local conservation organizations, stuff, communicate to your friends and family the benefits of it and stuff like that? Like, what is the future, and how can we as the next generation protect it?
Well, we've been having that conversation, I have anyway, for over 50 years with different people. And you can look at Europe and see what their hunting is like. Look at UK, and if we don't allow public access and give the public places to go and enjoy the outdoors and to hunt and to fish, and we aren't able to teach our young upcoming hunters and fishermen what joys there are there, we're all going to miss out. But it's amazing to me that we have some pretty darn good biologists that give us some pretty good advice more times than not, and people don't want to listen to them. So I think we need to pay attention to well-trained biologists that are in the field, that are getting the data and the information that helps us make good decisions for the future. But we need opportunity and we need opportunity at a reasonable cost to take others, young people, and teach them the joy and the excitement of what it's all about to be in the wild with wild animals.
I think you're right. When I look at the European model, for example, of it's basically a rich man's sport, limited, very extremely limited access, and I think, gosh, because there's lots of different issues we could tackle here: habitat, access, disease, what politics. There's many different routes that probably all of them need to be addressed. But it seems like, I think you're right. It seems like, and I know RMEF and many organizations work on this a lot, the access thing is so huge. I was lucky, Will, here last year, my real estate company, Made Out West, we brokered a deal between a private landowner, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and the National Forest over in the Western Oregon, Roosevelt Elk Habitat, and a salmon and steelhead stream, to open up this landlocked chunk of habitat. And it was awesome. Like, it made me feel like I tied everything that I do together, my land company, my love for elk and hunting and the industry, and it was really cool. So now people can go hunt this property that used to just be this island of private out in the middle of national forest. And not only that, it's now protected forever because it's in a conservation easement to where it's the headwaters of a river called Three Rivers, and it's a major salmon and steelhead stream. So there's many, many benefits of it, but it just seems like finding those little wins in our life to where we can help.
David, you should be so proud of that, because that's the ultimate, to be trying to make a living and putting all this stuff together, but benefiting the public and benefiting others and giving something back in terms of this access. That's incredible. Thank you for telling me that. I love it. That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I loved working on it, and I'm planning on doing more of those. It took a long time, and it was really hard. I think whole process was 5 years.
Wow.
So it's not necessarily, from a business person's perspective, it's not like the most profitable thing you'll ever do, but it feels so good, and it's the right thing to do, which is even more important. But I agree with you. Access, yeah, for sure. Access is definitely number one. I agree with that. So what about, and you don't have to say anything you don't want to. I'm just curious. I'm just genuinely curious. What do we do about technology, AI, just technology as a whole? The human species constantly innovates, and even in the hunting industry, we constantly innovate, make the next thing better and better and better. And it's really good. It's benefited all of us, no matter what anybody says. But like, how are those lines drawn, and who draws them? And does there need to be lines? And like, cause there's so many debates right now, which I don't want to get into on here, but like from someone who has years in the industry, how do we deal with those conversations and as we go forward?
Well, there's only one thing that's constant, and there's only one thing I can guarantee you: there's going to be change.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand enough about artificial intelligence, except that I know it's coming, and I know it can be used for bad things, just like the internet. People had no idea what the internet, and it has created some opportunities for some bad players, but it has benefited the world in a huge way, and has connected people in a huge way. Sometimes not for what I think are the right things that need to be promoted and put together, but we've just got to, once again, make those good decisions. I go back to, we're all consumers of this world we live in. We've got to make good decisions. So hopefully we'll have enough people with good character as they go down the road and see opportunity, that they won't compromise their character, and they'll help make good decisions using artificial intelligence. I mean,
what about in the hunting industry with technological revolution that's happening? Like how and where do we draw lines? How do we deal with each other? You know this, Will. There's like, I shoot this, I'm better than you because you shoot this, and you use that, I don't use that. I do this, I go lighter than you. I do. Like there's all these stupid inter industry debates that happen. And I shouldn't say they're all stupid, but
I hear you. I do hear you. But once again, each to his choice. But when you start giving an advantage to a hunter that's unfair, that can work against you in the long run. You can destroy the resource, the habitat, the game that lives there. So we have to make decisions. And I've seen some pretty stupid decisions, but all in all, I think the game and fish departments in the different states have done a good job of seeing what's coming available and making good decisions on what they're going to allow us as hunters to use. Everybody is interested just about in a gimmick, and they think that gimmick's going to make them more successful. If they think that little fishing lure wiggles a certain way when you retrieve it through the water, they're gonna possibly buy it, and so entrepreneurs making money drives all of that. But we just don't want to use technology that ends up harming our resource and harming the overall good of what we all love so much, being outside hunting and fishing. I mean,
did you ever get take flack for not being a purist to a weapon? For example, not only being a bow hunter, you did everything in your heyday. Did you ever take any flack for that?
Yeah, and I used to be one of those. When I was a young, kid, I was 6 years old shooting what I didn't even know it was called a longbow back then, but it was a little longbow, a Ben Pearson longbow made in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. But when the compound came about in the 70s, I can't remember the year, but sometime in the early 70s, they're going to destroy bow hunting. They are going to absolutely destroy it. And I wouldn't shoot anything but a recurve. And I eventually changed. Economics changed that a little bit. Success changed that. One thing or another. I still love my recurves. I got a bunch of Fred Bears and I got a Black Widow, and I still shoot them. And I enjoy them very much. The romance of the era is something that means a lot to me. But I shoot a Matthews bow. I've got a new Matthews lift. Incredible. It's a different style of shooting than a recurve shooting, but it's incredible how accurate you can be if you shoot good form and you have the bow set up correctly. And Matthews has done an overwhelmingly good job year after year after year of adding to the opportunities that we can have bow hunting. When crossbows got hot, people were running around screaming and yelling and having a fit, same as it was when the compound came out. And I had already gone through that. And I just said, if they want to shoot a crossbow and that's what the store has to sell, and they want to teach the people how to use it, and they'll go outside and help us kill some of these does, and because we've got way too many deer in most parts of Mississippi, and they're eating themselves out of house and home. If they'll be a part of that process and go hunting and add to the economy, I can still shoot my recurve or shoot my compound. I can do whatever I want, but at least they're there and they're participating. So I hear what you're saying. I do it right and you do it wrong because I use this equipment and you use that equipment. But I guess I'm grown up. I'm past all that. As long as it doesn't give us an unfair advantage over the game we pursue, I'm for it.
Yeah, I had because we've talked about it, but I had the same. I grew up in a very traditional family and local archery club, and I'm still friends, and with those people and I shoot my recurve. I love my recurves. I have more recurves than compounds, longbows.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But I used to consider the compound the devil. Like it was.
I did too.
and when I switched to a compound for most of my hunting here 5-6 years ago, I got some real nasty messages from friends of mine. And it made me realize and I responded I've gotten past it. My response was basically, look, I get your point. I've heard all the arguments. I don't agree with them anymore. I think that people should be able to legally do what they want as long as it's legal and ethical. Number one, there's nothing I can do about it. Technology is going to continue to advance. The only thing I can do about it is argue my points, and the other person argues their points, and we land on a law, right? That's how it works.
Yeah.
But I can't. Humans evolve to where someday I'll be like, this AI thing is bullshit. We shouldn't have this. Well, that doesn't matter what I think. But
That's right.
my point is I've learned I love shooting a compound. I love shooting a rifle. I love shooting a recurve. I love shooting a shotgun. I've actually morphed into a multi-weapon hunter, and I actually enjoy hunting more because of it. I now get to spread my hunting season out longer.
Yeah.
Heck, I shot my bull in Montana this year with a 300 Weatherby Magnum at 40 yards in his bed. And it was one of the most exciting hunts I've ever had. Yeah. I could have shot it with a bow, but I was hunting with a rifle. It just happened that way. But I do it gets a little tiring and exhausting hearing all these industry arguments that are, it just, I don't know how you move past it. I think it's just human nature. It's tribalism. It's all these things.
Yeah, and I love shooting the recurve so much. Shooting with flus and throwing frisbees and man, that is so much fun. And so but have you seen I believe the guy's name is Lars Anderson. Have you seen his video?
Is he the trick shot? Is that what he does? No,
I don't know if you call him a trick shooter. He researched and began to understand that before the invention of the gun, when bows were the only way to defend yourself for any distance at all, he figured out how these people, by looking at old photographs and engravings and monuments and stuff like that, he figured out how these people used bows. And you need to go, I think it's on YouTube. You go watch his video. He shoots off not the left side of the bow, but the right side of the bow, and he holds the arrows in his hand, and he can shoot. He can sit in front of you at a table. The table might be 3 feet across, 2.5 feet across, with a bow laying on the table and 2 arrows on the table. He can pick the bow up and shoot you with both arrows in less than 2.5 seconds.
No way.
You need to watch the video. The listeners need to watch this guy's video.
I just pulled up a couple of his videos. I'm trying to find the right one. Let me see if this one works. I don't think I've ever seen him.
It's crazy.
That's cool.
Is it possible to shoot a drop of water through a keyhole? This February, everyday archer Lars Anderson has made a new trick shot to show how fun and varied archery can be. We know for sure that historical archers trained in all sorts of variations and devised many fun tricks. And, historically, hero archers became known precisely because of their tricks. 100 years ago, at the 1920 Olympics, the archery was a variety of fun, different targets, like the historical bird high up on a pole and even a moving target. But then archery changed. Archery was thrown out of the Olympics because it had very few participants and for being old-fashioned, like sack racing and tug of war. Then, in the 1930s, archery was standardized. It was to become limited to shooting a round, color-divided target in order to get archery back into the Olympics. A few years later came the big movie, The Adventures of Robin Hood, starring the famous Australian actor and heartthrob, Errol Flynn. The film embraced the new standard target of archery, and as a result, archery in the standard form became popular after the movie. Since then, millions of people's only experience of archery is shooting at the round target. Incidentally, the round-coloured target is actually a garden game invented by the English upper class. But archery is much, much more than that.
This is definitely not about saying that target archery is bad. This is about telling that a variation of target may be much more fun. And for me, try to hit something that's impossible and nobody have done before is by far the most fun kind of archery you can ever do.
So, make archery fun.
Make archery fun. That's the point of the conversation.
Well, I haven't seen that particular video. The other one that I saw, he shows how he goes about how he would use the bow and arrow as a defensive mechanism and how fast he can shoot it. So search for more of them. It's pretty crazy.
Here, I think I just found it. Yeah, I've never seen this guy before.
Yeah, he's pretty phenomenal. When you see the one I'm talking about, he's
we'll keep talking. I'll try to find it. Yeah, and that is one of the reasons. Like shooting a recurve, I do believe that practicing with a recurve or a longbow is more fun than practicing with a compound. I do get bored shooting my compounds,
no doubt about it.
But I got to say, as someone who grew up with the recurve, and I've killed a lot of stuff with the recurve, but I've also wounded a lot of stuff with the recurve, unfortunately. And I know for a fact that a lot of people that only hunt with those do the same. And that's no knock on anybody. It's just the truth. Yep. And I will say, going out with a compound and knowing with a pretty high level of confidence that I'm going to kill that animal if it's under a certain range is pretty. It makes the experience a lot more enjoyable. Now, I was very public this year. I lost a bull. My Roosevelt elk tag in Oregon, I burn it on a bull that I did not find, and I know that I killed, and I'm not proud of that, but I was very open about it because I told the whole story because it happens. And so it's not like it can't happen with a compound, but definitely the odds go down. Yep. But again, I like all of it. I've become a multi-season, multi-weapon hunter, and I always appreciated that. But you didn't know if you were going to see you hunting elk in Montana with a compound or coming out with like a traditional muzzleloader and playing Jeremiah Johnson at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, in 2003, I commemorated the Lewis and Clark expedition, the 200th anniversary, when they set out on the expedition. I had a flintlock built, and it was supposed to be the exact gun that they built at the Harper's Foundry in Pennsylvania that was made for the expedition. There's another story to that. But anyway, so here I am shooting a 54 caliber round ball bullet. On the last day of the hunt, I killed the bull. It was at the 12-yard shot. But holy smoke, those mountain men, that really gave me an incredible appreciation for the gun that they took that kept them safe and provided food for the table. That flintlock's harder to shoot than a recurve for sure.
I really want to try that. I have not done that. There's a muzzleloader tag. God. There's a muzzleloader tag here in Oregon for blacktails that I could get pretty easy, and I kind of want to try that.
Yeah, I mean, with a flintlock, it's just the percussion cap was an advancement. It was the technology. Just we talked about that and changing that, and what do we say about those new technologies? And I'm sure somebody thought, "Oh, all the game are dead now. We don't have to use a flint anymore." But I'm telling you that the flint adds another element to it, and you definitely learn to pull that trigger and follow through, just like you do with a bow. And squeeze the trigger because it goes.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't necessarily have an instantaneous ignition. When that flint goes down, creates that spark on the pan, it flies through that hole and ignites the powder and keeping it dry. And I mean, it was a wonderful event. Brad Ferris videoed it.
Gosh, I wish I could. That's not on YouTube as far as I can find.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere. Yeah, I think it is. I hadn't seen it, but
what state was that in? It was in Colorado, or
in Colorado? It was in southern Colorado in the Calabria Mountain Range.
Gosh, I wish that's such an awesome video.
Yeah, you know, I remember I was in tears. Of course, I'm an absolute incredible fan of the movie Jeremiah Johnson. Of course, his real name was John Johnston, and the screenplay was written. And they did and Sidney Pollack, the director, did an incredible job. The cinematography, the music, everything is overwhelmingly incredible.
Johnson made his way.
For anybody who hasn't seen this movie, you are missing out. Go ahead, Will. I'm going to turn it down, but I wanted to.
But anyway, there was a guy in Alabama that that wanted. He claims I saved his life. He was going to commit suicide. His brother had gotten killed in an automobile accident. He was his best friend, and he just lost all reason to live. And some buddies were coming over to his house, and they brought him the very early Truth One video on turkey hunting, and said trying to cheer him up. And so they gave him the video, and he watched it, and it rekindled and started a journey for him. And he attributes the Primos team with saving his life and rekindling, and decided rather than kill himself, he wanted to honor and cherish his brother and relive going back and hunting like he and his brother did. So he wanted to do something nice for Primo. So for me, he went to researching and found the original synopsis that was typed on an Underwood typewriter, old typewriter in the 60s, late 60s. It was presented to Hollywood to create the movie, and he found the original black and white photographs that were taken by the person documenting the making of the film. So he gave me all that. So in my office here, right behind me, I've got all the pictures of Jeremiah Johnson, of Swan, of Sidney Pollack, of Bear Claw, of paints his shirt red. So it's an incredible history of Jeremiah Johnson and what it means to us who love the outdoors and the adventure. And just to think about those mountain men, those people who went west. Of course, Jeremiah Johnson was later in that time. The 1820, 1830 was the real exploring of the West and incredible adventures of the mountain men. I've got many of their books. In Cody, Wyoming, at the Smithsonian Buffalo Bill Museum, they've got Jeremiah Johnson, John Johnston's gun on display. I've been there. He was exhumed from California, became a sheriff in California later in life, and they exhumed him and buried him in Cody. And there's a monument there to him. I've been there and been to the monument.
Wow.
If anybody wants to make a trip, go to Cody, Wyoming, and go to the Buffalo Bill Smithsonian Institute. It will take you 2 days just to see all the guns that are in there. If you never quit walking, and the Indian artifacts, and the museum is incredible. It is a real piece of American history. Everybody needs to go there and stay at the Irma Hotel. Irma was Buffalo Bill's daughter. The Irma Hotel is there. The bar in there is incredibly long and big. Was given to Buffalo Bill by, I believe, the Queen of France. They shipped it over on a boat and railroaded it into Cody and built there at the Irma Hotel. Mary and I have stayed in every room in the Irma. I think it's got like 8 rooms. It's named for all the rooms are named for famous people that have stayed in the rooms. But that's a unique adventure to go to Cody.
I love the Irma. I love that museum. I took the kids there when they were young. I think they would appreciate it now more. But
heck yeah.
I still think that Cody is my favorite Western town.
It's a great town.
Sorry for everybody in Cody that don't want anybody to know about it, but Cody is such a great spot, man. God, I love it. It's so beautiful, right on the edge of these enormous mountains and Yellowstone Park, and it's just I don't know. It feels like the old West. Now it's highly branded. It's highly branded with Buffalo Bill and all these things, so it makes it feel like that. But
it's kind of like Cody, not unlike Bozeman. Bozeman become the the new place that's growing so fast they can't see straight. So everybody needs to know that Bozeman is a horrible place. You don't want to go there.
Yeah, agreed. Well, a lot of people got the memo and they're going there because every time I go to the airport in Bozeman, which is about once a month, it grows. And I don't know where they're going to keep growing it. That place is just gone
35 years ago,
insane.
David, that was the most enjoyable moment landing in Bozeman. That little airport was so small. The food was great. The Bloody Mary that Mary and I had was absolutely fantastic. That was just a little hole in the wall airport, and now it is like almost Atlanta.
It's changed a lot, even just over the last 10 years. And I know people that grew up there. The people when I moved there in 2012. The people would say, "Oh man, you should have seen this place. It's changed so much." But now when I go back, I'm like, "Gosh, it's changed so much since 2012. It's just crazy." I don't. Yeah. Man. Yeah. It's still a beautiful place, though. Still amazing.
It's a beautiful
obviously.
place. It's a beautiful place.
But don't go there and never go to Cody because Cody's not cool at all.
No, not cool at all.
Hey, Will, I got to ask you. Back in the day when you were traveling nonstop for hunting and business, and like as a married dude, I always wonder, how did you manage marriage, business, and hunting?
I'm very, very, very fortunate. Mary has been so supportive, and she learned to call elk so she could be with me when elk hunting. So she's really, really, really good at it. One time, the hunt was over. The elk didn't end up coming in good enough, and we regrouped back up together, me and the cameraman and Mary. And I said, "Mary, did you hear all the elk behind us? They were running down that hill." And she goes, "Will, that was me." I said, "What do you mean it was you?" She says, "I picked up 2 rocks and went down the hill acting like I was elk running." So she understood how to add all these other sounds other than just calls that she was hearing the elk make. And then I said, "Well, why did you shut up at one point? You just shut up and you quit calling us. I think that elk would have come on in if you'd have kept calling." And she goes, "Let me show you." And she gets out her iPad, and 2 satellite bulls, they were 280-inch kind of satellite bulls, had come in on top of her and they came in from the side, couldn't smell her. And they were 10 yards from her, just standing there looking at her with that iPad video in them. Another time, I had already killed my tag, and Brad Ferris was hunting. So me and Mary are calling for Brad. And so Brad's down below us, sort of. We can see him, which is always a great opportunity when you're calling, when you can see the shooter and kind of have a better feel for what you need to do. And so this was a lucky setup. And I moved back. Mary and I moved back about 100 I moved back about 150 yards. Mary's about 100 yards, and I'm back behind Mary, and she just took over the calling. She's got a hoochie mama in one hand, and she's got a hyper lip, and she's she's doing all this crazy. Elk comes in going crazy. He gets to about 15 yards from Brad, and Brad shoots him, and elk runs out there about maybe 40 yards and falls over dead. And so I walked up to Mary and I said, "Mary, what did you say to that bull?" And she says, "Will, I know what you guys are thinking."
True story.
Yeah, true story.
So you brought her a lot with you.
Yeah, she called up 17 years. For 17 years, she called up an elk every year for 17 years running.
No way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about on your business trips? Because back in the day, and you were visiting dealers all the time.
Trip, she rarely went on a business trip with me unless it was something like the National Wild Turkey Federation convention where you could stay in the Opryland Hotel and I could go to the booth and work all day, and she could go to the spa and she could rent movies or whatever she wanted to relax. Because I'm working. It's amazing. Everybody there knows you. There's not one person there, I don't think, that doesn't know who these people are who are prominent in that in that world that they live in, like turkey hunting. Now go to the Atlanta airport, 3 people may recognize me walking through the airport. But if you go to National Wild Turkey Federation at the old Grand Ole Opry Atlanta Hotel, everybody knows who you are. So they want to. They've watched you. You've been a part of their lives on TV for 40 years, and you meant something to their life. And when they couldn't go hunting, and they see you as doing what they wanted to do for a living and couldn't get there, and so it's an incredible honor, and you just got to be up for them, and you've got to be there, and it's hard work. But Mary would enjoy going to those kind of trips, but for the most part, it was in and out. I remember one time I was going to Massachusetts to do a National Wild Turkey Federation convention, and they called me and getting the dates all in, and I looked at the calendar and I says, your convention starts on Sunday morning at 9:00. And they said, yeah. I said, y'all don't go to church? And they go, nope. I said, okay, whatever. I'm from the Bible Belt. That's part of my life,
Yeah. We don't work on Sundays.
we go to church on Sundays. We don't go to turkey conventions. That's what they did. So I went up there and did it.
Well, that's amazing. You guys were able to manage that relationship so well.
But like I believe I told you on the first podcast we did together. We didn't have children, and that that would have changed things, and I would have had to make some different choices, and I would have had to send other people to make some of those trips and some of those conventions. But you combine the amount of trade shows, the amount of buying group shows, and the amount of opportunities to meet and greet people and let them know you. That's one of the keys to marketing. If you give somebody the chance to know you and they like you, they will more likely buy your product over a competitor's product. So making that choice to get in front of the public and honor them and thank them and teach them what you've learned and learn from them as well is a huge opportunity to grow a brand. There are people who have used that. And reading the book Radical Marketing, that's what radical marketing is. It's when you don't have money to be on like My Pillow and advertise My Pillow on the TV every 30 minutes for years. When you don't have that kind of budget and that kind of opportunity, you've got to find some other way to utilize your time. Time is money. You got to find some other way to reach the people to let them know that you've got a product that might benefit their time in the woods.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's when you boil down marketing, successful marketing in the companies that I admire, it seems like, obviously there's a lot around digital marketing these days, but relationships win. Relationships win in real estate, relationships win in making hunting calls, making clothing, whatever. If you're a plumber or electrician, your most important customers are the ones that exist already, and because they tell their friends about you.
Very well said, David. Very well said.
I'm learning that over and over and over and over and over. Because
don't forget it.
I do. I don't forget it, but as a business person, you're always looking for that next horizon, that next thing to help grow your companies and whatever. And I'm in business with my father, and he's very old fashioned in a good way, where he always grounds me on the very basics of business. I mean, and he's just the best at keeping great relationships. And I that's why, honestly, because I'm not the world's smartest guy, I think that's why I can do it pretty well, is because I can build good relationships and keep them healthy. And because they tell their friends and they tell their friends and they tell their friends and they tell their friends. So
that's right.
Before we end this podcast, Will, I wanted to watch a couple more videos. One video I wanted to watch, which I watched this morning, was this video of this buck called Eric.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of context? And the reason it was so fun for me to watch is because I actually had the opportunity, I think, to hunt where he was. That at Rivers Run?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So this is in Mississippi. And when I asked you on text yesterday what your most memorable hunts were, this was number 2. Not that they were in order, but this was one of the top three.
Yeah.
So tell us about Eric.
Well, Eric, we had seen him on camera, but we never seen him on the hoof. And then a guy named Eric Zinzenko, who was the publisher of Outdoor Life, came to Rivers Run and came hunting. He's the first person to ever see him on the hoof. So we named the deer Eric, and I told anybody that wanted to, my guess that they could kill him. But he got by everybody, and we're pretty sure he was 3.5. I didn't really want him shot at 3.5, but next year he'd be 4.5, and I really didn't want to shoot him at 4.5. But Johnny St. Clair was the manager of the farm at the time, and so Johnny was videoing me. He had learned to run a camera and got pretty good at that. And so we're on the edge of a CRP field, and all of a sudden Eric shows up, and he turns around and walks off. And I'm just sitting there with my jaw dropped because I was fixing to have an opportunity, and it's gone. And Eric's a big, mature, 4.5-year-old, massive buck. So massive horned buck. I don't think he weighed more than about 180, 190, if I remember right, but he massive thickness, mass on his horns. And so Johnny, thank heavens for Johnny, Johnny says, Will, call. Because this is right at the pre-rut. And so if it wasn't for Johnny above me with the camera, that's the CRP field, and telling me to call, I would have just sat there dumbfounded. So I started calling, and here came Eric. He steps back out, and he's looking for us. He is.
Dude, that CRP is, that's a little buck, but that CRP is so thick. Here, I'll find where Eric comes out here. I think it's up here.
Yeah.
I think he comes out right here. Hey, I'm going to pause it real quick though. Why was he so hard to? I don't remember. I didn't get to hunt the whole farm, but was he like leaving your property a lot, or was he just so good at hiding?
He was so good at hiding. He was living. This field has grown up tremendously. That's we call it baka bushes right there, that green that you see, and it's just another understory thing when it has the opportunity to be prolific like that. But as the trees grow, it shaded it out. So anyway, here comes Eric.
Here he comes. Or was that the first time you saw him? I might have messed up.
I think that's the first time. I think that's the first time.
I'll go up. I think it's right here. He comes back. God, what an incredible animal, man.
Yeah, he's just pretty incredible to see us. Put your hands around those horns is pretty incredible.
Did I see him mounted in your lodge?
No, I didn't mount him. I just Europeaned him.
Okay. I love it when the coyotes go off in the background in this video.
Yeah, those are coyotes screaming right there in that field, yeah. And you notice the reaction of the deer. He hear it all the time. You don't pay any attention to him.
So you think he was only 3.5?
He was 4.5 here.
Oh,
this is the next year. And he's going to end up at an angle that I've got to put that air. See, I've got to put that air extremely close to the shoulder to be able to catch both lungs.
You made a great shot.
When I pulled back, that pin was in the perfect spot, and all I had to do was just that's where your knowledge goes into skill. Because I don't remember squeezing the trigger. I don't remember, anything other than once everything's there, your mind, it's like typing. You can type and you can, all of a sudden you go, well, how did I just type the words, Sally went to town? Your hands know where your brain knows where your hands go before you have to tell it. Well, that's what happens when you turn knowledge into skill. For bow hunting, for baseball, for football, for sporting clay shooting. But anyway, he was just a beautiful animal.
Is that the biggest buck that you got off that farm?
4x5.
Me, yes. Yes.
That is a man.
I sold the farm since then. A guy from Nebraska bought it, and he's done a great job with it. And he's been killing some really big deer.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
And all the camera pictures we got.
Well, that's an incredible buck and an incredible story.
Yeah.
I loved coming down there. That's the only time I've been to Mississippi.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was awesome.
You killed a buck too.
I did. Yeah, I could have shot it with a recurve. But that day I took out was that your 4570?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I still have that shell somewhere around here. In fact, that buck is right here next to me on my wall. I love that buck.
Awesome. Great
Yeah,
memories. Great memories.
it was awesome. Will, it is always such a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope I get to see you in the near future. Maybe in Montana, maybe somewhere else, but I always learn so much from you.
Well, you're very encouraging, and I learned from you as well. But thank you for the time. It's great to relive a lot of these memories, and to, when people don't ask you questions, like you're pretty pretty creative with your questions. You go back and ask questions like, "How did you sustain that, and being married and traveling that much?" And you go back and you think about it, and I guess I was lucky, and it really makes you really appreciate where all you've come from, and being able to live this life has been great.
You've lived an incredible life. Can't argue that. Lots of adventures. Last question. Have you slowed down your hunting?
I've slowed down some of my hunting. I don't like sitting on a deer stand as much as I used to like. I used to love to figure out those big ones and go at the right time. But sitting still on the stand, I love hunting upland birds. Just got back from Arizona, and I'm shooting a lot of sporting clays. I like moving. I like doing things where I'm active. Sitting on my can doesn't work very good for me anymore.
What about elk? Are you still doing multiple states every year? Or?
I'm not doing multiple states. We lease a ranch in New Mexico where the team has been producing the elk shows and so forth, and those current elk shows. I have missed the last 2 years. I had foot surgery a year and a half ago, and then this past fall I had eye surgery, and I have overcome both of those and looking forward to next year.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see the videos. Thank you so much, Will, for doing this, and we'll do it again.
Okay, man. Take care. Thank you. Good job on the altitude show.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.